As Scott McFarland reports, it was Democrats who helped save Johnson's job.
This is the Uniparty.
Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene made good Wednesday on her threat to force the vote to boot fellow Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson.
The form of the resolution is as follows. Declaring the office of Speaker of the House of Representatives to be vacant.
After a cascade of boos, the House overwhelmingly rejected Greene's efforts, with fewer than a dozen Republican colleagues joining her and Democratic leaders showing their support for Johnson.
Ms. Greene, were you surprised by the number of votes against your motion?
No, not at all. I fully expected the vote count today, and I think this is exactly what the American people needed to see.
Greene has blasted Johnson for cutting too many deals with Democrats, including the recent foreign aid package for Israel and Ukraine.
Hopefully, this is the end of the personality politics.
Some of Greene's colleagues denounced her tactic.
She is engaged in a failing act of political theater.
As Democrats defended their choice to back the embattled speaker.
We need more common sense and less chaos in Washington, D.C.
In a social media post last night, former President Trump urged his fellow Republicans not to move against Johnson, calling him a good man.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Rescue Michigan weekly live stream. And we will come back to talking about that clip in a little while here. But first, today's Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day, everybody. And we have a mother on the stream tonight who I understand is a little bit tired. So we're going to get first to talking about to actually reading some of the hearing. I call it in the description the trial of Kristina Karamo. Technically, it was only a motion for a preliminary injunction, but I mean the hearing was practically a trial. So, welcome, guys. Welcome, Amber. Good to have you on the program, and of course,
as always, thank you.
And Scott McMahon from Bigger Truth, who will be doing some voice acting as we read through the hearing tonight. That's of course why he's got the tie on and I've got the suit. We are going to be playing some real people who participated in this hearing. Unfortunately, we lost Patty tonight. She was going to do the voice of Ann Delisle. So Amber is going to be voicing Ann instead of the judge. The judge didn't have too many lines anyway, so that's good for Amber. So, hey, Dan in the chat and Richard, we see you there. And folks on Rumble, we see you there as well. We will come back to talking about the weekly news, but first we are going to do some reading. So as we mentioned, Amber will be playing the part of Ann Delisle, who was, of course, one of the witnesses for the plaintiffs. Scott McMahon is going to be Jonathan Lauterbach, who is the attorney for the plaintiffs. And I will be voicing this guy, Donald Campbell, who was the attorney for the defendant, Kristina Karamo. She had, I think, some co-counsel in this case, but he was the one doing the talking in the bits that we are going to be reading from. So I got my coat on here, but I don't have a bow tie. I thought about maybe getting one online, but my soul just couldn't bring myself to get a bow tie. Bow ties are always wrong, folks. You should not wear a bow tie. But I will do the best I can to improvise without actually having to acquire a bow tie. So let me just tie this tie here into a bow, and then we'll be all set to go. This is the hearing. We have posted it in the description of last week's weekly live stream. Let's make this a little bit bigger here for you guys. Here we go. Not that big. Here we go. This is the case. Melinda Pago, Ali Hussein, Hassan Nami, Ann Delisle, Jessica Bearfield, Norm Schinkel, and Warren Carpenter, who are all plaintiffs, versus Kristina Karamo, who's the defendant. All right, let me get this bow tie tied here. Let's see. How do I do this?
In all fairness, I could never do Ann Delisle justice. She is amazing. So I will do my best to be Ann.
This is true. All right, here. Let me just. You got to go like that, and then let's see. This is a lot harder to do than tying your shoes. Can't really see myself here. Well,
I think we get the points.
Yeah, we're obviously going for perfection here. I worked really hard on mine.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just leave it like this. Screw it. You can't even see me anyway because I'm all small in the frame. I actually did manage in front of a mirror to tie my tie like a shoelace, and it looked absolutely ridiculous. But we'll just have to improvise. So we're not going to read the entire thing through because obviously this was like 12 hours worth of hearings. So we're just going to go to some fun parts here. So first, we have this section. By the way, the reason why we're covering this case is because until these transcripts were published, Kristina Karamo's people were going around telling everybody the judge was so unfair. Clearly, he was bought off. He was obviously part of the establishment conspiracy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so this record, this is the actual record of what happened word for word. So if you want, in the description of last Sunday's live stream, you can download all 3 days pages worth of transcript, and we are going to go through it here. So let's see. Where was my starting point here? We were going to say
line 14.
Line 14. Okay, perfect. Yeah. So we'll start with Mr. Lauterbach again. Scott McMahon. In fact, let me just make a correction to my name here. I am not Adam D. Angeli. I am Donald D. Campbell.
We're getting really involved in this.
There we go.
Want to put his P number there too?
I'm not putting his P number in there. All right. I guess I'll just kind of parenthetically do the court because we don't have a voice for the judge. So let's go right to it. Mr. Lauterbach.
All right, Your Honor, I believe there's an objection to exhibit number 8, so that's not been included in your binder. I believe a sufficient foundation has been laid for the document that I obtained from Ms. Delisle that she says are the minutes of the January 6th meeting.
Okay, now I'm not playing Donaldson. Now I'm on the court. Very well. Response, Mr. Campbell. Your Honor, yes. May I voir dire? You may. Okay. You have that exhibit in front of you, correct?
I do.
And you typed that exhibit?
I did.
Had you ever served as a secretary pro tem previously to a meeting of the Michigan Republican Party?
Not at the Michigan Republican Party.
Okay. And so this was the first time you ever did that?
Yes.
At whose suggestion did you do that?
I was asked by several individuals.
Okay. Who are those individuals?
I was asked by Bree Mongenberg, who called the meeting. I was asked also by co-chair Melinda Pago and a few, I can't remember everyone off the top of my head, but there were several members who said, you served as a secretary in other capacities. Would you mind taking minutes for this meeting?
Are you aware of any reason why, as the district chair, you cannot serve as secretary for the Michigan GOP?
There is no reason why, as the district chair, that I cannot serve as a secretary pro tem for the Michigan Republican State Committee.
You could not serve as a secretary, correct?
I cannot be elected as a secretary.
Okay. And the way you serve as a secretary is to be elected and then approved, correct? Or appointed and then approved. There's in the election, correct?
I do not understand the question.
Okay. What do you mean when you say you could not be elected?
So elected means serving as an officer of the state committee.
Okay. So you were not an officer of the state committee when you served as the secretary pro tem, correct?
I was not an officer of the state committee.
Thank you. There is a secretary of state of the Michigan Hold on. There is a secretary of state of Michigan GOP, correct?
Yes.
And what is her name?
Angela Gillespie.
And she has been, for all you know, the secretary since she was elected to that position until today, correct?
Correct.
Do you know if the minutes you prepared were ever given to her?
I do not know that.
Okay. You never gave those minutes to Secretary Gillespie, correct?
I do not recall.
Okay. You know the minutes have to be approved at some point at the later meeting, correct?
I believe so.
Okay. You'd agree that it's not an official record of the Michigan GOP because that would be in the possession of the secretary of the Michigan GOP, correct?
I do not know.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd object to the entry of this exhibit. It is nothing more than her recorded recollection. She actually said she can't remember anything. It may be used to refresh her recollection as to what happened at that meeting, but it is not a proper document for admission. Okay, now the judge goes. All right. Thank you, Mr. Campbell. I did have a couple of questions, Ms. Delisle. You said you've served as secretary of other organizations. What organizations would those be?
I served as secretary of the Genesee County Republican Party, and I've served as secretary of various committees in my church, including the parish council.
As such, have you prepared minutes in those jobs?
Yes, sir, I have.
Okay. And when you've had those minutes of those meetings, they had been submitted and approved at a subsequent meeting?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did you prepare these minutes in more or less the same way as you did on the church counselor as the Genesee Republican Party secretary?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any further questions before I rule admission, Mr. Lauterbach?
Oh, I have none. No.
You get more lines in the next passage. All right. Well, I do think the objection here goes to, I guess, the official status of these records. However, I view it as an objection from my consideration primarily to the weight of the evidence, in that, that it's possible because these haven't been approved subsequently, which I suppose we'll get to here, but they would be minutes, but just as recorded, but not as finally approved, and perhaps, as Mr. Campbell seems to be arguing, not a part of the official record of the Michigan Republican Party. However, I do believe that those considerations go to the weight that I should accord to the evidence rather than the admissibility of the evidence. I do believe, because of Ms. Delisle's prior service as secretaries, that she certainly appears capable of recording minutes, and I can consider those minutes in light of their deficiencies as potentially an official record. So, subject to the objection, which is acknowledged at this time, they may be admitted. You may proceed, Mr. Lauterbach. All right, here we go. That's the first one. So now we'll do part two, and this one I think is even funnier. But folks, again, this is one small piece of what was literally hours of Donald Campbell arguing with Ann Delisle over nothing, and later on arguing with him over the law. Jason says, "Happy Mother's Day." Yes, Happy Mother's Day, everybody. And let's see here. The other passage we were going to do was page 38. Okay, let me scroll through here. Okay. You're up again, Mr. Lauterbach. Wait, am I on the right page? Hold on, let me make sure.
38, top. Yep.
Yeah, page 38, line 10. Okay, so we'll start right here. All right, go ahead.
Your notes reflect 45 state committee members, 26 proxies for a total of 71.
Top, right? Was it line 10? Sorry.
Yeah, I have line 10.
Okay, correct.
All right. Do you believe a quorum was present for the meeting on January 6th?
Yes.
At that meeting, was a vote taken, or was a motion made to remove Kristina Karamo as chair of the Michigan Republican Party?
Yes, sir.
All right. When was it seconded? Or was it seconded?
Yes.
The motion's dated?
Yes.
Was the question called and voted upon?
Yes.
All right. And what was the outcome of that vote?
Oh, sorry. I lost my spot because I had to scroll down.
It's on our shared screen too,
Kristina Karamo was removed as chair of the Michigan Republican Party.
All right. How many people voted in favor of the removal?
I believe it was 45.
Okay. And to be clear, were the only people that voted those who attended in person?
Yes.
Okay. So proxies were not used in the vote to remove Ms. Karamo.
No, proxies were not used. Correct.
All right. Would you turn to Exhibit 11, please? Could you identify this document for the court, please?
This is the first 3 pages are the members of the state committee as of January 6th. And it lists the members by district committee or by district. And then it was a date. And that was the date that each signed a petition to remove Kristina Karamo as an officer and chair of the Michigan Republican State Committee.
All right. Did you see these documents before the January 6th meeting started?
I did see them.
All right. Did you see these documents being counted?
I did.
Who was doing that?
There were 2 attorneys as well as co-chair Melinda Pago.
All right. Do these documents appear to be in the condition that they were in when you saw them on January 6th?
Yes.
All right. Where have these documents been since January 6th?
It's my understanding these were taken by an attorney.
So someone's physically been in possession of these since January 6th.
Yes.
You saw them being counted on January 6th.
I did.
Do you know if these were submitted to the Secretary of the Michigan Republican Party?
They were.
Okay. When?
So the question was asked after the meeting started by Dan Hartman. He asked, he raised the point of order or point of information, and he said that the documents that the requisite petitions had not been submitted. And Co-Chair Pago said, yes, they have, and that they were submitted to Angela Gillespie and to Kristina and copied to herself, Melinda Pago, and they were sent at 1:49 p.m.
All right. Your Honor, I'd move the admission of Exhibit 11, the petitions for the removal of Chair Karamo.
And is it, to clarify a little bit here, Mr. Lauterbach, is this the checklist, the kind of checking in these petitions, or the actual underlying petition?
It's a combined exhibit that has the checklist on the first 3 pages and each of the petitions then behind it.
All right. Response, Mr. Campbell? I have the same objection in terms of the state of the records and what they are purported to be. I do want to ask the witness a question or two, if I may. You may. Thank you. Are you aware of do you know who emailed the signed statements you described at 1:49?
Who emailed them?
Yes.
It's my understanding that Matt DePerno emailed them.
Matt DePerno is not a state committee member. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And he emailed them on January 6th, correct?
Yes.
And that was the date of the meeting, correct?
Yes.
And you would have been the person to check those signatures as well in verification?
No, that was not my job.
Okay. You did no credentialing for that, correct?
No.
Did you do any credentialing for the people who were there at the meeting?
Can you define what you mean by credentialing?
Okay. As a person who has served as a secretary and claims to have been serving as a secretary pro tem, you don't know what a credential is?
I do know what a credential is. I just want to make sure I understand your use of the word credential.
What do you understand the word credential to be?
That's what I'm asking you, sir.
Yeah, but pardon me, Judge. I believe in law school I learned I get to ask the questions. I think that's correct. I think she's asking for a restatement or for clarification of the question. I'll allow you to rephrase it, Mr. Campbell. Thank you. Do you know what credentialing is as a secretary of the Michigan Republican Party?
I do.
Okay, what is it?
So when you check in for a meeting, they verify that you are that person that you say you are.
Okay, who does that?
A volunteer.
Okay. Is it overseen by anybody?
I've never seen anyone oversee that process.
Did you oversee the process in any way, shape, or form on January 6th?
I did not.
Okay. If you wanted to know who did that job on January 6th, who would it be?
Are you, may I ask a question?
Yes. I thought I was asking the questions. Now you may ask a question.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Are you asking about those who came to the meeting?
I'm asking.
Or are you asking about those who submitted forms?
Thank you. Is there any credentialing done for those who submitted forms?
I would say yes.
Okay. What credentialing is done for them?
Direct phone calls and emails were made to those who signed the petition, and there were people who called directly to the numbers that were known to them that, as an example, I would call and say, is this John Lauterbach? This is Ann Delisle. I'm a member of the state committee, as are you. You know this is what's going on. Would you like to sign the petition? There was typically a lengthy conversation, but it was known to both who the other was, and the one who was being asked to sign the petition was sent a PDF or a DocuSign, and then the state committee member made the decision as to whether or not they would sign the DocuSign or sign in their own hand and submit a PDF.
What you've described to me, I understand, as solicitation, not credentialing. Was there an active effort to seek out certain signatures for the petitions, correct?
Can you ask the question again, please?
I'd request that it be reread if possible. We'd have to replay it because this is an electronic courtroom. Why don't you just restate it as best you can recall? As best I can recall. Somebody recorded it probably here. There was an effort you're aware of to solicit signatures for the petition, correct?
I don't know that I would say solicit. I don't know that I would use that word, but there was definitely many conversations. If I could clarify, sir.
Yes, please.
So in a political group or a political party, anytime that you are asking a question, you typically whip the vote. And so that's a very normal thing in a political group.
You looked at the signatures on the petition, correct?
Yes.
In the proposed exhibit, you're aware of the signatures that were necessary in order to call the special meeting that you say took place on January 6th, correct?
Yes, the signatures that were reflected on. Are you referring to the December 2nd signatures?
Yes. Well, yes, I am, as a matter of fact. Yes. So you're aware of that, right?
Yes.
Do you know how many signatures were on the petitions as of the date of the original special meeting? Because that wasn't December 31st, or it wasn't January 6th. It was December 27th, correct?
There was no meeting called for December 27th.
So you're saying there was never an expectation for a meeting on December 27th?
It's my understanding of the word expectation and called in the sense of calling a meeting are two separate things, sir.
Okay. But you're aware that there was a plan for a meeting on December 27th, correct?
Your Honor, are we still vordeering in Exhibit 30?
Amber, it's you.
Oh, sorry. I think that was.
Okay, now I'm the judge again. Let me get the answer. Well, I want to hear a response on the question first. How is this related or relevant to the admission of number 30? So where I'm going is, Judge, you can do a comparison because you already have at least one of those exhibits in front of you. There are signatures for the meeting to take place, and then there are, of course, signatures for the removal. And what you're going to find is that the signatures for the removal don't line up with the signatures for the meeting to take place. And in fact, even from the original date of the meeting on the 27th, we haven't stipulated two exhibits, I believe, on that. So I can give you, or that I can give you. They didn't have enough signatures, so they're moving things along. What I want to say is that these things don't line up. They should have the signatures that they needed in order to call the special meeting, and they didn't do that. So, but she had testified that there's more cross-examination, so I acknowledge that. The court again. Okay, all right. Yeah, I think we got a little bit of field of where we were on the admission of the exhibit here. I'll steer back to you, Mr. Lauterbach, on admission.
Your Honor, I'm going to move the admission of Exhibit 11.
All right. And 11, as I understand it, is a checklist of the original documents received. Some of them in PDF form, some of them in a DocuSign format, which the Supreme Court has allowed us to, utilize as a verified electronic signature, at least for court filings. I'm not sure how that would hold up under the bylaws. However, and the cover document appears to be a checklist. Mr. Lauterbach, are you submitting that as a substantive proof that these are all valid? Or are you just giving me a list so that I can make a determination after cross-examination and additional evidence?
I'm submitting the petitions as substantive evidence that the petitions were collected before the meeting began. The checklist, there will be testimony from other witnesses, or from another witness, about the due diligence process that was employed to verify the signatures and verify good standing of everybody that signed. And that's what the checklist is for. It's combined into an exhibit. So for that purpose, you could wait until the next witness to determine the admissibility of the checklist. But the petitions themselves, the witness has testified that these were submitted before the meeting and tendered to the secretary in a meeting.
Okay. So in other words, these are the documents that to some degree the court could look at and say, well, they speak for themselves. It has a signature or a DocuSign signature on it, and thus make a determination of the validity just as the witness said that she did. I believe, again, the objection here goes to weight rather than admissibility. And because it's a bench trial, I do believe I'm able to cut through some of the more confusing evidentiary rules here and weigh those accurately. So with regard to the petitions only, and I haven't heard enough about the checklist and its verification yet, but the petitions I will allow the admission of at this time are is it number 30?
Thank you, Your Honor. And I may have misspoken. I think I called it 30, but
yeah, but I've already got a 30 in front of me. So this is 11.
Right. This is 11.
Just don't start using Roman numerals, Mr. Lauterbach. Thank you. All right. All right. That was the first reading from the transcript of the trial, the trial before the trial of Kristina Karamo. And of course, let me take this stupid crap off now. And the actual bench trial will now begin on, I believe it's June 12th, I want to say. And I've heard some rumors. Apparently, Dan Hartman saying they've got some bombshell new evidence. I guess we'll have to wait and see. We'll see what happens when the trial commences on June 12th. I've also heard they have some new attorneys. And maybe these people who are representing them at this motion hearing are no longer their attorneys. I don't know. I guess we'll find out. I can't imagine Dan Hartman's their attorney because he's a witness. How could he be? We'll see. Anyway,
how would they be paying the new attorneys?
That was my biggest question, right? Yeah.
Someone might have money in that group. I don't know.
Maybe they found the computers.
700,000 that went to Lori Skibo's organization.
Yep. Hey, by the way, since we have you here, let's change our names back. Got you still as Mr. Lauterbach. I should have changed my name to Donald D. Campbell / Judge Rossi. Oh well. Anyway, there we go. One of the things we meant to talk about this week. So apparently, and I didn't bring any clips of it, but I did see that floating around on telegrams and emails and stuff. Apparently, Kristina Karamo's people were very, very angry because last week in an email blast, I had the audacity to suggest that the Kristina Karamo people were pushing a constitution that was going to radically rewrite the rules of the Michigan GOP to be something that certain distinguished scholarly journalists called conversion from the party of Lincoln to the party of Lenin. And they claim, nobody wanted to pass that document. That was the sole work of James Kopis, and nobody had anything else to do with it. And everyone's just avowing it. It's amazing. I don't know, Scott, what's your take on that?
Well, what about the Committee of 17?
The Committee of 17. No, they were all against it. I mean, clearly.
Right.
Let's in fact, let me bring up on the screen here just in case. Because again, this is the stuff that Kristina Karamo's people are putting into issue. And so we kind of have to address it. So here was this letter. Let's see here. Letter to delegates. Hello, Michigan GOP delegates and members. I hope all is well. I'm happy to present to you for your consideration a real MyGOP grassroots footprint opportunity. By the way, who is presenting this document? It is James M. Kopis, JD, LLM, Executive Director of the Michigan Republican Party. Copying on it, Kristina Karamo and Daniel J. Hartman, General Counsel of the Michigan Republican Party. At the time, I think, although maybe he was not. Let's see. When was this document dated? February 21st. No, he was long since removed as MIGOP General Counsel, as was Kristina Karamo. But nevertheless, they were copied on this. As if to say, just making sure you guys see this so you know I'm saying that this is what we are doing. Right? Because that's what you usually do when you're emailing somebody and you're copying your boss. That's usually your way of making sure, hey, boss, look, I did the thing you wanted me to do, right? Because boss will be very angry if the thing I'm doing is not the thing you wanted me to do. That's kind of why you do that. You CC your boss so everyone knows boss is with me on this. This is the thing I'm doing with boss, Kristina Karamo. And this goes on for pages and pages. Please find these documents. 3 important matters: the proposed MIGOP Constitution, an explanation of how this grassroots footprint constitution is built in this letter. How we built this constitution. And there's a bunch of complete gibberish here about negative and positive rights. Actually, that's about all there is. That's about all there is for how this has been constructed. And a list of the Constitution Review committee members that completely and carefully reviewed the Constitution and had a significant input into the final draft design and formation. I thank them all for their tireless efforts and critique. Well, apparently all of them said they hated this thing and were all completely opposed to it. That's weird.
So did they disavow Dan Hartman?
I don't know.
I mean, just this week or whatever, with this very angry letter, whatever you got from them.
Yeah, wasn't there? By the way, I didn't go to it, but I did hear that this group called the American Republic Policy, whose logo strangely resembles that Robert Owens guy's Michigan Republic Policy logo, Had some events this past weekend this last Friday, I think, with Alan Keyes and with Pat Koldak and with and Kristina Karamo was there, I believe. Is that right?
I'm pretty sure Tom Renz was there too.
Tom Renz was there.
Yes.
The guy who claimed that everybody in the military was dropping dead. That
Yes.
guy?
Yeah, and also the guy that works with Mike Flynn.
Yeah.
Yes. Got paid $50,000 by the America Project.
So you mean to tell me that Kristina Karamo and Jim Kopis, the author of this document and the author of the Constitution and the author of the document of the Committee of 17, just 2 days ago, were palling around together in Michigan? This group here, this Constitution Review Committee of 17, and you see they got their email addresses there and their names. A lot of names are misspelled here, but you got Kristina Karamo, Dan Hartman, Jim Kopis. These guys all still hanging out together. Wow. And yet apparently according to them, they had nothing to do whatsoever with the totally disapproved of the Constitution that they spent months working on.
Right. Well, don't forget though that Dan Hartman, after this was released, about a week after it was released, Dan Hartman wrote this 13-page long letter of deep thoughts, and on the last page of it, he was giving a full-throated endorsement of that Constitution document, saying that it was the best thing that he could imagine, the best solution for revising the bylaws for the Michigan Republican Party.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, Nick Prill asks, didn't Hartman also testify to the validity of the Constitution in court? That's I don't know. I'll have to read through the transcript. I don't recall seeing that, but I don't know. I'll tell you what, Nick, I'll get that answer for you when we have our next live stream, and we will read some of Dan Hartman's testimony as a witness in the case in which he's also an attorney, and we'll see how that goes. We'll see what we find. We'll see if he indeed testified as to the validity of the Constitution in open court. This would be very funny. Jason Mickelborg says, didn't they all sound like the founding fathers? Apparently not. Maybe they docu-signed it or something. I don't know. Dan Lawless says, I have video of them at KK's Jan 13 gathering where they discussed the proposed Constitution and cheered all the review committee members. Excellent. Dan, send me the video. We'll feature it on next week's stream.
Yes.
Awesome.
All right. Well,
All right,
I'm going to leave, gentlemen, because you two are amazing and probably would be a really cool podcast with you both on. So have a good
All right.
night,
Well, thank you
guys.
for joining us, Amber. Have a wonderful rest of your Mother's Day, and we will see you next time. Thanks for coming on. The other thing I want to talk about this week, I can't talk about because it was, man, we're a lot bigger now. Whoa. I was going to talk about James Chapman, the ball kicker, apparently got kicked out of a district committee meeting, but I wasn't there. Patty was, and she's no longer here tonight. So we'll have to cover that next time. Yeah, Nick says it's in the day 3 transcript. All right, well, we will get to that one of these days. So there you go. All right, I guess with that, let's get back to some of the news of the day. So we started with this clip. Scott, you saw that, where we have a vote of, well, here, let's pull up the roll call vote. I've got it handy here. Hold on. Let me just share the screen. Here we go. This is the vote. This was the motion to table Marjorie Taylor Greene's motion to vacate the speaker. So obviously the yeas are supporting the motion to table, meaning they are opposed to removing Mike Johnson, House Speaker Mike Johnson, from the speaker's chair. And an amazing thing happened. The Democrats ended up being the ones to vote for Mike Johnson, something which, it's funny because in Michigan, normally when they have a vote for the speaker at the beginning of the term, both parties all vote yes, ordinarily. But in Congress, it's never been that way. They always have a partisan vote, and the opposing party in the minority always votes no. And yet, strangely, the Democrats have now bailed out Mike Johnson. Of course, it's not exactly a huge mystery why the Democrats have bailed out Mike Johnson, because he's passing the things they wanted. So let's look at a couple of things here.
Some insight on this, Adam. So I spoke with somebody that was at the spring retreat, Trump's spring retreat that was at Mar-a-Lago about 2 weeks ago now, 2 weeks ago yesterday. And there was about 400 people in attendance, and it was invitation only. And the first speaker at that event was, do you have any guess? Who?
Mike Johnson?
Yes. The very first speaker of the event was Mike Johnson, and Trump introduced him. And it was this is the first speaker out of 2 days of speeches. So, and the person that I spoke to who was there, he said that the list of speakers was really noteworthy. That it was Marco Rubio, Tim Scott, Kristi Noem. I don't have them all committed to memory, but they were
Okay.
kind of mainstream Republicans. Who wasn't there was Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey, Andy Biggs, all these people that were trying to remove Johnson. And Trump said several times during the course of the event, along the lines of, we really just have a one vote majority in the House, and we can't mess that up. And there's, I've begun to tease it out that there is, there's a significant effort, I think, behind the scenes to try to threaten Trump's nomination. And if the timing were right, do you want me to get into this? Because it might take me a few minutes. It's kind of a crazy.
Go ahead, please do.
So if the timing were right, and that right timing would be, it's too early to replace him. But Steve Bannon said he for the last several weeks, he was saying, until this vote happened, he was saying, I don't care if it means that we get Hakeem Jeffries as speaker, we've got to get rid of Mike Johnson. And if that were to happen within 2 weeks of the national convention, then this is just, I'm not predicting that this is going to happen, but this is something that could happen. And I think that this is part of what's playing into Trump, really endorsing and wanting to protect Mike Johnson, is that, so with the Colorado Supreme Court case that happened, one of the justifications was that one person can't determine what is an insurrection. It takes an act of Congress. And so if in a week or two before, and if it were longer than that, then the Supreme Court would probably step in and say, no, you can't remove Trump from the ballot. He's going to be on the ballot. But if it were to happen a few days before the national convention, my guess is that Jocelyn Benson and all the other Democrat secretaries of state would step in and say, okay, we're going to remove Trump from the ballot. It's constitutional to say, that the Supreme Court gave us a means to do that. If Hakeem Jeffries were the speaker, if he became the speaker and he passed a resolution declaring that January 6th was an insurrection, that could be, at least in their eyes, not necessarily, I don't think that the Supreme Court would uphold that, but in their eyes, it would be the justification that they need, at least for that time, to say, okay, we're going to remove Trump from the ballot. And if that were to happen a few days before the national convention, one of the things that's really been bothering me about as I've been now for a couple months, is I've seen how important it is to these disruptors who they are sending as national delegates. And that they, obviously had Pete Hoekstra not intervened and reset it to Grand Rapids, had the convention, the state or the district caucus has been held in Detroit, it's very likely that they would have sent a slate of pretty radicals, majority radicals. There are 7 states that I've confirmed, and I think it's probably 8 to 10, but 7 that I've actually confirmed where they have a supermajority of complete radicals, chaos agents. People like the Lori Skibos, Braden Jacobazzi's, the Dan Bonamies, the Joel Studebakers, people just like that in 8 to 10 states. And Rob Steele said that in order to suspend the rules for the convention, it takes a supermajority from one state, a supermajority of national delegates from one state in writing in advance, asking to suspend the rules, and 7 supermajorities from 7 other states to second. And then it's gone. The rules are, and the delegates are no longer bound. And so there would be chaos. And this happened. I talked with Solomon Yu, who's an RNC committeeman from Oregon. He's been there for 24 years, or since 2000, so almost 24 years. And he, in 2016, Reince Priebus tried to parachute in Paul Ryan. And Solomon actually, and I pulled up the story to confirm it, Solomon actually changed the rules of the convention. He moved to change the rules of the convention so that Robert's rules would be the rules of the convention, which prevented that effort to parachute in Paul Ryan. In 2020, Ted Cruz did the vote your conscience resolution that he tried to get passed, saying that we need to let our delegates, let the national delegates vote their conscience instead of being bound to the results of the PPE, because they were saying, well, Trump's not electable in the general election. So this has happened in the last two presidential national conventions, and it's very likely that is what would be the outcome. And I have my theories about who they would want to replace him with, but the bigger thing is that it's a threat to Trump. And I think that the people at the top, the people like Bannon and others who were calling for the removal of Mike Johnson, knew that would be the ultimate outcome, that it would be a threat to Trump.
All right. Let's unpack a couple of things here.
I just dumped a whole lot on you there.
Yeah, let's start with the basic facts of that this is the working theory, which is that if Johnson was vacated, somehow this automatically translates into Hakeem Jeffries gets the gavel. That does not follow. We already had one speaker be vacated, and the result was that it took about 3 weeks for them to elect a different Republican speaker. The Republicans do still have the majority, and the fact is, Johnson got to be the speaker by saying and promising a lot of things that he ultimately broke, and not just minor things, but critical things, huge things. In fact, I want to post, and I'm going to get to these other points too, and getting into the issue of what happens if the Democrats remove Trump from the ballot. But I first want to just say, we have now gone a string of, if this happens, this could happen, and then this could happen, and this could happen. And this is a pretty ordinary way that politicians will explain away what ultimately boils down to the Republican Party motto, which is next year. Whatever that thing you want us to do, we can't do it now. We can't do it now. We can do it next year. We'll do it once we get the majority again. We got the majority. We don't have a big enough majority. We got to worry about losing the majority. Oh, we got to get Trump reelected. Oh, no, we have another incumbent to get in. And there's always a reason why they can't do the thing that you demand that they do. Except when there's the one thing that you want them to do, that all they got to do is do nothing. Just let that unlawful warrantless mass surveillance program expire. Just do nothing. And that's all you got to do, which should be the easiest thing in the world to do in Washington. Just don't have a thing go through both chambers, go through the whole committee process, and have a recorded roll call vote. Somehow, Mike Johnson managed to get warrantless mass surveillance through the very thing that Republicans, Jim Jordan himself said was DOA in the House. And after a year of hearings into warrantless mass surveillance on the Trump campaign, warrantless mass surveillance on conservative activists, warrantless mass surveillance on January 6 people, and also on some Democrat types too. Oh, let's just renew it, because Mike Johnson got a secret briefing from someone in the deep state, and they showed him some video that clearly changed his position entirely on warrantless mass surveillance. The only reason that we're safe is because Big Brother keeps us safe. And let's look at a couple of. In fact, I want to put this up on the screen. Hold on. This is what Marjorie Taylor Greene's motion actually was. I'm not going to read it all word for word because it's long, but just the gist of it. Mike Johnson promised to do these things: transparency, a comprehensive policy agenda, promoting members and the whole team by playing up each member's strengths, having working groups in key policy areas, effective messaging, persuade the Republican base about our policy agenda, build and utilize external coalitions, think tanks, policy groups, develop and grow our majority by building our resources. He has not lived up to a single one of these. In fact, he rammed through 1,000-page plus bill with no amendments, no more of that order, no more total transparency. All these things he didn't do. He relied on Democrat support to get a two-part omnibus bill, a bigger budget than even Nancy Pelosi pushed through. He allowed the removal. They're complaining right now. Oh my gosh, we could lose the majority. He voted to lessen their majority, to expel a member who had been convicted of no crime, and gave that seat to a Democrat. He voted for everything that they put in the budget. And this is where we get to that question of, well, what happens if Hakeem Jeffries could become speaker? He is the speaker. Mike Johnson's speaker in name only, because right now his butt is only in the speaker's chair as long as the Democrats choose to keep him there. And he knows this. So every single day, the Democrats can come in and say, do as we say or you're gone. Do as we say or you're gone. Every single day. Do as we say or you're gone. So the Democrats now control the House and the Senate. And okay, what happens if Hakeem Jeffries becomes speaker and they pass they pass a bill? How would they do that with the Senate when they don't have a filibuster-proof majority? I don't know, but somehow they're going to pass some resolution that says Trump committed an insurrection, and therefore he'll be removed from the ballot. Again, I mean, I thought honestly, even the lawsuits getting to the stage that they did was far-fetched, because it's so obviously a coup to just disqualify the Republican nominee from the ballot. I still think it's not plausible. And I think if they were to do it, it would be so nakedly. I mean, it would actually be probably the best gift the Republicans could have if Democrats started physically trying to remove Trump from the ballot, because it would show every American your vote doesn't count. They will not let your voice be heard. And that goes to, I think, when you heard Marjorie Taylor Greene, she made this is a very important point the reporter made. The reporter asks her, was this the vote you were expecting? Yes, it absolutely was. I want to show the American people. And she did show them that the overwhelming majority of people in both parties will completely ignore when someone breaks all of their promises, breaks the rules, as they did when they passed the warrantless mass surveillance thing, as they did when they passed the NDAA. Oh, let's just suspend the rules of the House and not have an open rule. All the stuff he promised went out the window. And Marjorie, and here's the important thing. This is a roll call vote. And I don't think the media understood this, and I don't think most people understand this. What's so critical is that this is now on the record. That now where every member of Congress stands is right here. So, and I'm gonna read some chats here real quick too, because I know I've been ranting for a long time too, and I want to let you answer some of the things I've just said. But yeah, Kelly Fountain asks, if Mike Johnson goes, then will he side with Democrats and then take over? I mean, here's another thing too. A very common thing that people will say all the time when you're pushing on politicians is, if we try to do what you're telling us to do, we're going to get something worse. And the reality is, if they could do something worse to you, they will do it right now. If Mike Johnson could switch to become a Democrat, he would. There's a number of reasons he can't. Probably his district is one reason. He'd be in office for a very short time. He'd be gone next year. Couldn't run for re-election. I mean, theoretically, Republicans could simply resign from office early and give the Democrats a majority. Some have. Some might still. They might do that anyway. They might do that whether or not Mike Johnson does what they're asking them to do. Either way, they win. So what's the difference? Jason says, vacate the speaker during an election year. Really? That's an interesting question. Does this look good for Republicans right now? Because what's the message that this vote sends right here? The message is, Democrats ain't so bad. Because right now, Democrats and the Republicans are voting the same way. They vote the same way on Ukraine. They vote the same way on the Israel aid. They vote the same way on China. They vote the same way on mass surveillance. They're not that different. And what's Marjorie Taylor Greene's point was there is a Uniparty out there.
I think that this vote to remove Speaker Johnson is a different and complex issue, a more complex issue than what you're making it out to be. And I also think that it's a completely different issue than the other things that, that I agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene on most of those issues. That, the things I'm not defending Mike Johnson in any way in terms of, the FISA. I think that's terrible. I completely disagree with that. The funding to Ukraine, all those things. But the reality is, I don't think that those things are as important as maintaining the Republican majority through the election. I think that is the most important issue. And there's a lot of things that are happening that I'm not privy to, that none of us are really privy to. And I definitely am seeing evidence that leads me to completely agree with President Trump that we can't, removing Mike Johnson at this point in time would be extremely dangerous. You could say, it's an if then kind of thing, but all it's going to take is just a couple, you could call them rhinos, but a couple of Republican representatives, if they were to go through with a motion to vacate, they just say, I'm done. I'm out. I'm done with this. This is not my circus, not my monkeys. And they just walk away. And that gives the Democrats the majority. And I think that's just really dangerous.
Well, and now the people that would have done that are now all on the record because they have that roll call vote. By the way, here's another point I hadn't made. These are the things that Marjorie Taylor Greene said. If you do these things, I will back off. These are the 4 things I want you to do. Number 1, don't give any more of our billions and billions of dollars to a war for Ukraine that we've already lost. Literally, the day that they passed that Ukraine foreign aid deal, oh, by the way, it's not going to do you any good. We're losing the war anyway. Let's give them more money. They've already started it on the next round of funding. So she asked for the audacity to ask for no further aid to a foreign country, which last time I checked, Trump was an America First president. At least he claimed he was. A return to the Hastert rule. Why is it called the Hastert rule? Because there was a Republican House Speaker named Dennis Hastert, meaning no legislation is brought to the floor vote without a support from a majority of the House majority. So you couldn't pass a budget that's supported mostly by Democrats. You couldn't get things like warrantless mass surveillance backed more by Democrats than by Republicans. By the way, just Googling Marjorie Taylor Greene to find this article, I ended up turning all these stories. This just goes to show how stupid the Hastert rule was. Really sounds like a great common sense thing to me. I wish the Michigan legislature had that Hastert rule in effect every time Republicans have a majority. Defunding the special counsel probes into Donald J. Trump in upcoming appropriations. Why didn't they do that every single time? Why didn't they do that in the last round of budgeting? And finally, enforcement of the Massey rule, whereby government funding is automatically cut across the board if no superseding agreement is reached before a set deadline. Sounds eminently reasonable. You're still fighting over the budget? Okay, well, then an automatic reduction goes into effect. And it's not even like a huge cut. It's like a 1.1% cut, which was something that, again, he agreed to as a condition of becoming speaker. So these are the 4 things. So when they say, and Scott, I'm not trying to argue. I mean, I'm not trying to attack you on this or anything like that. I understand what, or even Trump. These are what his arguments are. But what a lot of times people are doing is they're carrying the arguments for people who are making the arguments because they want you to back off. If you back off, they win. At the end of the day, these were the 4 crazy things, unreasonable things Marjorie Taylor Greene asked for. No. They said these are the 4 things we will not give you. We will not give you these 4 things. And almost all the Republicans, except for 11 of them, said, okay, fine, screw it. I mean, that is not using leverage. That's losing leverage. That's just showing when you're getting pushed around, they'll let you be pushed around. Who were these 11, by the way? I'm sorry, Scott, your turn to.
Well, no, I'd be interested in your
None of them.
Why is it that you think that President Trump might have made that such a clear priority to keep and protect Speaker Johnson? Why do you think that he made that? Because it was that the message that I got from someone that was in attendance is that it was very loud and clear that that was one of his very top priorities right now, is to ensure that Speaker Johnson is protected.
I think Trump heeds the counsel of the people around him. And I think the people he has surrounded himself with, really since the get-go, have been giving him bad counsel. And a lot of them are, frankly, creatures of the swamp. And they're experts at getting people to say, well, you know, I campaigned on cutting spending, but now that I'm in office, now I've got these new people that explain to me the new realities of things. And they're great at doing these things. And someone like Thomas Massie has a grounding in constitutional principles and knows how to hire people that have been in Washington for a long time and know these explanations and excuses. And then you got someone like Trump who's like someone who likes to be liked, which is very, very dangerous in Washington. Someone whose top priority is getting elected. So he's going to subordinate his views on policy to his views on what's going to be politically expedient. And when Trump got elected in 2016, nobody understood him in Washington. No one understood him in the media. They didn't know how to handle him. So when he would often do things that led his opponents to do stupid things that actually ended up helping him even more. He was really on top of his game. And since 2016, the swamp has figured him out. They've profiled him. They've studied him. They know what makes him tick, and they know how to manipulate him. And I don't think he's on guard for that the way he should be.
I completely disagree with your assessment. I think that he understands, from what I've seen, his top priority is to drain the swamp. And I think he has a clearer and better understanding of that. He's been deeply betrayed. I don't see, if he wanted to be popular, he would not be running for president. That's not what he would be doing. This is not making him popular. That's not what motivates him. I think what motivates him is to drain the swamp and to get this country back on track, which is not possible as long as we have a Marxist bureaucratic deep state that's running that's running this government. And I think he clearly understands that. So I think that assumption I just disagree with. But I do think that, and also he doesn't have the same people on his inner circle now as he did during his first term. Not anywhere close.
Well, I mean, yeah, but sometimes, he fires Jeff Sessions and brings in Bill Barr. I mean, sometimes the new boss is a lot like the old boss. We will hold on. Let me read some chats real quick.
That are closest to him, I think, are very sharp.
Well, I would hope so. But I've also, I've been in Washington a little bit. My office as chief of staff was on Trump's transition team at one point. They're very, very good at saying, if we don't do things this way, bad things will happen to you. I mean, that is what they're all experts at saying, and they're good at what they do. It's okay. We can agree to disagree. I'm going to read some chats real quick. John C. King says, a lot of those things listed by Marjorie Taylor Greene, like transparency, are subjective. Too much baloney in her comment. I think it's actually not all that subjective. When they passed the NDAA, they didn't even have a conference committee. Johnson spoke for the entire House. It was all done behind closed doors, and it was an up or down vote. I mean, that was as non-transparent as it gets. Let's see. There's something else I wanted to read. I think it was also from John C. King. Let's see here. Oh, Jason Mickelborg says, I heard Gates even question Marjorie Taylor Greene on this. Well, Jason, it's funny. I remember when there was a motion brought by Matt Gaetz to vacate Kevin McCarthy as speaker. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie both said, no, let's not do this. This might be a bad idea. And then they got Mike Johnson in. And I remember saying on this stream, I was like, oh my gosh, Matt Gaetz' gambit paid off, and we got someone more conservative than Kevin McCarthy. Well, it turns out Marjorie Taylor Greene, who made a point of saying, I actually know Kevin McCarthy pretty well, and Thomas Massie, who is like the new Ron Paul in Congress, they got it right. So I'm not taking my judgment calls from Matt Gaetz as much as I am from Marjorie Taylor Greene, because she and Thomas Massie were right the first time. Emma Burt says John James deserves to lose. He is a liar. Yeah, and he was the one that voted against Jim Jordan, who might be in this mess if Jim Jordan was speaker. Level 1 says, who put Johnson in that position? The House Republican caucus. But it wouldn't have come to Mike Johnson had not a few Republicans, including John James, voted against Jim Jordan for Speaker. Level 1 also says, we have only had a filibuster-proof Senate. How many times have the Democrats? Very rarely. I don't know off the top of my head, but that's the point being. They can't pass legislation with only the Democrats unless they nuke the filibuster. What else do we have in the chat here? Level 1 also says the media, Hollywood, academia, social media, etc., are not going to put pressure on the White House or the Senate to pass our bills. No, they're not. But the point is, if we don't, no one does. That's the reality, guys, is when you say, okay, well, this person voted against everything I demanded he vote for, and then the media is against you, and the establishment's against you, and the lobbyists are against you. That's what the politician says. I'm going to go with the establishment and the media and the lobbyists because I know that you're going to just say, whatever excuses I give you, all right, well, they're going to vote for me anyway. That's why they will never, ever, ever, ever pass any pro-life legislation. Because they look at the pro-life movement and they say, we're a wholly owned subsidiary of the Republican Party, and they'll vote for us no matter what we do. Gun rights legislation is different. Gun rights people have gotten their way a lot of the times. You know why? Because they knocked out Eric Cantor, for example. He was big pushing Schumer-Toomey Mansion. Remember that deal? A lot of Republicans got primaried that year. Eric Cantor was the historical loss. The gunnies showed they don't care about knocking out leadership to get their agenda. And the Republicans like, okay, these people mean business. You know, that's the reality. When politicians realize you're their property, then they treat you like it. John C. King says, if such a small percentage of Republicans voted for moving Johnson, doesn't that say something about them and not the huge majority who voted against turmoil? Well, where'd the turmoil come from? Why did Mike Johnson change his view on passing all those things? Remember what happened to we're not going to support foreign aid until we secure our border? What happened to that? Because that might be a winning campaign message, you know. We've been trying to pass Ukraine aid, but gosh darn it, the Democrats just will not compromise on this illegal immigration thing. They care more about importing voters than they do about the poor, suffering people of Ukraine. Now we don't have that leverage anymore. That leverage is all gone, guys. Now we own all of that. Now Russia's kicking the shit out of Ukraine, and we own it because guess what? Republicans just passed that Ukraine bill. Great job, guys. All right. I am not going to take the last word for you, Scott. So I know that we are disagreeing on this, and that's fine. We're totally okay to disagree. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I think we should save, because I know in the stream topic, I listed also Russia and China and stuff. We'll talk about that some other time. It's been a long stream. Well, not a long stream, but some Mother's Day stream, and we've been kind of going off on this. So I'll tell you what, Scott, I know you've been doing a lot of great interviews lately. So A, answer me, and B, plug anything you want, anything you've got coming up, and then we'll call it a stream. So
yeah,
what you got for me? Yeah.
I just want to thank you, Adam. Appreciate your friendship and appreciate you inviting me on. I'm putting everything that I'm doing, I'm putting on my Substack. It's biggertruth.substack.com. That's biggertruth.substack.com. If if anyone could please become a paid subscriber. I do a weekly members only podcast where I kind of do like my most current research and kind of do a mind dump on that once a week. And I have several big stories that I'm working on this week. So including one on Neil Frisky that we should be seeing in the next couple days.
Awesome. You've got a new group on Twitter I saw because I joined it. I haven't even looked at it yet. I'm not on Twitter as much as I used to be. But it's called MAGA but sane, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, MAGA but not crazy. So I think I'm going to do that on Facebook too. Just I want to try to bring, here in Michigan, we are so much farther. The party's so much farther along than any other state that I've looked at in the country, and because people came together from all over the state in order to remove Kristina, and so we have competent leadership that's raising money, working on getting out the vote, bringing people together, and we're definitely the exception in the whole country as far as what I've seen. So just trying to bring more people together from all over the country to figure out what works.
Awesome. Real quick, I just noticed another comment on Rumble. I always miss the comments on Rumble. Skeeter James says, I love President Trump and I'm a forever Trumper. However, his one shortcoming is reading the swamp people. I've seen him get burned a few times. Yeah, more than a few. He also says, Adam, listen more to Scott. He's clearly better than you. Well, time will tell, Skeeter. We'll see. We'll see how things go for Trump and Mike Johnson. Also, John C. King, I meant to finish his other comment. Was it another point to this, John, too, is, by the way, it's really hard to vote against your speaker. Ask any Republican in Lansing. I was talking to someone the other day about there's this really ugly primary race going on in its district where this guy actually no, I was going to tell a very nasty story. I think I'll save it for another time, maybe, if I tell it at all. But let's just say this. It's real easy when you're a speaker to be abusive towards your caucus, because especially the state level, where it's extremely top heavy in terms of the power structure. If you vote against your speaker, they have a lot of tools available to destroy you. And your only leverage is that only time you get that one vote to elect someone the speaker. And it's not a good system at all. And the reality is, a lot of these Republicans might despise Mike Johnson and might want him gone, but they would be afraid to do so because of the consequences. And I just saw a comment, Adam, you've been following Ottawa County. Nope, so I can't answer that. And we're signing off anyway. So, Scott, thank you for joining me tonight. More from us soon, certainly next week. And happy Mother's Day once again, everybody. We will have more readings of the transcripts coming soon. And of course, 1 month from today, I think, is going to be the start of the official trial. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah. All right. Thanks again for all you guys do for liberty. Until next time. Peace out.